Hello and welcome to another installment of the ARCHLine.XP online interior design courses. Today we are going to look at documentation. My name is Zoltán Tóth. I'm working for ARCHLine.XP as the partner manager, and I'm also a CAD and modeling enthusiast. So I love creating things and I love working with our software. So today I'm not only going to show you how to do documentation properly, but I'm also going to show you the little tips and tricks I picked up along the way. Last time we looked at kitchen design. We looked at how to create carcass furniture and how to create a kitchen like the one you see on the picture. And today's topic is all about, well, it's less about modeling. So this is less the artsy things and the more documentation side. So this might not be that exciting, but when you think about it, whenever you are creating a design, what really pays the bills is the documentation that you create. So you not only have to be very sharp with how you are designing a living room like this one, but you also have to sell the design somehow, and selling the design is done with layouts, like the one you see on the picture right now, or whether your mood board is convincing enough, or if you have the right dimensions that you can communicate with your clients. So all these components are adding together, communicating your design successfully. So there's no way around it. We have to learn how to do that as well. Before we dig in, let me just show you, as I always do, the webinar page of our website. If you go to www.archlinexp.com/webinars, then you can see today's show and all the shows I've done so far. So this is where we created the reception room that we are going to use today. I also talked about the basics of CAD drawing, bathroom design, and kitchen design as well. And our upcoming shows are obviously documentation and also lights and rendering. If you are coming from an architectural background though, I suggest you scroll all the way down, and here you can find relevant courses in that topic as well. Whenever we are making a presentation like that, I always urge you to ask your question on the right hand side or below the video in the chat bar, so that way I can keep the topic even more relevant. Another important thing is that if you haven't done so, please sign up to our webinar courses, because that way you never miss another show. For those of you who are new to this, let me talk about ARCHLine in general, because the software I'm going to use is a CAD/BIM three-dimensional modeling software called ARCHLine.XP, targeted for interior design and architectural purposes. Today we are going to look at documentation, that's true, but more from the interior design perspective. So this is what we are hoping to achieve, but this is not where we are starting. So I'm going to load up the starting position of this project, which can be reached from, by the way, I haven't mentioned that, but if you want to follow along, you can download the content that I'm using. So if you want to download the course guide, which is a very comprehensive PDF document, so that way you can follow along, or you can download the webinar files, and that way you would be able to use the same files as I do. Now, back to the software. And we are going to just go with File, Open Project, and we are opening up the starting position of this, this content. So I'm just going to quit without saving, because we are looking to recreate what we are seeing here. Okay, so where do we start? First of all, we have a three-dimensional model of a living room. That was the first thing we created earlier this week, I think. So we have, let me just navigate around with the page up, page down keys to just look around the perspectives and see what we have. It's a very clean and neat and simple project, but this would be able to demonstrate the documentation tools just as perfectly. So what is the first thing that we do? Well, the first thing that I usually do is to create a mood board. Well, the mood board is there to sort of communicate the atmosphere, the mood of your room, and that is nothing else but a layout onto which you are collecting images, materials, pictures, snapshots. So that's what we are creating first. We go to documentation and we click on mood board, and we are creating a new mood board, which is done like this. So first you have to decide on the paper size. We have the standard paper sizes. I'm usually partial to A3 because that's a large enough size, so I'm just going to go with A3 and in a landscape position. Now I could potentially position a plot stamp or title box. This time I'm not doing it, so I'm disabling this and I'm going to hit OK, and that would give me an empty sheet of paper. Now what do we do next? First of all, I need to have a couple of let's have a couple of pictures. I do have a collection of images. Let me just Let me just open this up. So I have a folder in which I have all these images, which are sort of, I did not use these images in my design, but they were sort of influencing the mood of the design. So I want to make like a palette of these pictures onto this layout. To translate it, what I just said, we are going to learn how to import images onto a layout. That's simple as that. So what we do is that we go to mood board, raster image, and now we are browsing for the images. Let's start with this site over here, interior_01. When I import something, I have several choices in terms of how transparent I want these images to be. I'm just going to hit OK. Hit one pick point of the image, and then the image is going to be too large, but now the software allows me to scale it back. So if I click again, the image would be the right size. Let's import a couple of more. There are two ways to import an image. One is through the menu. So you click mood board, raster image, and then you pick something else. Let's say this cinnamon collection over here, like that. That's one way to do it. The other way is to just open up the file browser and import them with drag and drop. I like this chocolatey thing, so I'm just going to import it like that. Click, drag, release, and let's have a few more. Maybe this. I think these are coffee beans. Always time for coffee. Oh, this is. Well, if you know what these things are, let me know. I'm not good with spices, so you let me know what these things are. So I'm just going to import a few more things. Maybe this texture is very good, so I'm just going to drag and drop. Notice that my mood board is looking quite shabby, so I need to organize this content somehow. What do I do? First of all, if I click on an image, I have the movement markers in the middle, so I can just grab onto it and move the image like that. If I want to resize this image, because it's way too large, then I'm just going to move it somewhere else. Let's say move it here. Oh, by the way, if you don't want these guidelines to appear, click on this magnet, because that would disable the snapping. And just click and enable it back again, because otherwise you're going to have a difficult time. I want to resize this image now. What do? I either click on the sides and I go with scale, like that. Or I can just go to the menu down here and I can here edit the image with these menus. So, but I'm just going to show that a little bit later. So again, I'm moving this image up here, and I have this image up here. Okay, here's the problem. I like this image, but I only like the color palette. I don't need the cinnamon up here. So what do? I go to the local context menu of the image while it's selected, go to this arrow over here, and I'm just going to say clip the image, and we're just going to crop the image back. So now the image has this kind of guidelines, and if I click on the sides, I can trim the image back. So that way I only see, once I hit enter, what I want to see. So again, I think now I could even scale it back up. So I'm just going to do it just like that. So one image should be here, and another image should be there, and this image should be made a bit larger. Yeah. Okay, here's one problem that I'm facing with right now. This image is covering this one. That's not good. I want to flip their position. How do I do that? I do that by going to the mood board menu and say that I want to change the drawing order, and I want to move an element forward. So to the front, I select this option and click on the image that I want to move forward, and then it's going to be, trading places. If I click on it again, they're going to be flipped. So that's the way you do it. I'm just going to go back to mood board, draw to front. Yeah, I think now I have to put this back on. So I'm just going to say that I want to move this back, and now the image is pushed back. Another problem that I'm facing with right now is that this particular image, I need to flip this. There's no reason for that. I just want to show you how that's done. So you go to the context menu, and you go with edit. And here, if I say flip horizontally, then I just flipped it. So that's how you do it. So that's how you import pictures and images to the floor plan, to the mood board. Another task is, how do we import materials? Because there's quite a few amounts of materials over here. Let's say this one, for example, the color of the curtain. So I select the curtain, right click, and I say find material, like that, and now I have this Amazilla whatever number here. I activate my my layout again, and I'm just grabbing on the material, dragging it and dropping it, and then the software asks me, how do you want to place this material? I want to place it as a raster image, and then the story goes back to its beginning. So I'm just going to move it like that. Okay, that's fine. Well, when it comes to organization, this might be a bit shabby, but this gives you an idea. Another task I want to solve is how to put text onto the layout. Well, couldn't be easier. If I go to drafting and I go to text, let's click place it, and now I can type my text, which should be mood board, and hit OK. Okay, problem. If I place this text now, it's going to be amazingly huge. Why is that? Well, it's because the text has a certain size, which is actually 0.2 meters, so it's like 20 centimeters, which would be fine on a floor plan view. So if I put text over here, it's going to be the actual size, but this layout is already scaled down. So what I need to do, I have to select the text and scale it back down. I think a 10-fold scaling down would be good. So I'm just typing in an extra 0, and then the text would be fine. Okay, let me just put it right here. I don't like the style of the text. I want to give it another font. So I do that by clicking on the text, and on the property grid on the left hand side I can change the font, which should be I think this Century Gothic would be fine. Let me just find something which yeah, this one is better. I think I need to make it bold. That's much better. And the color, well, it's black and everything else is brownish and beige. I need to change it somehow, so I'm just going to say that the color should be something else. I'm just going to go with maybe a brownish hue. Mahogany, I think that's good. Okay, here we go. So that's perfect. Meanwhile, there are questions coming in regarding the mood boards. Keep them coming. I will turn back to them later on. Okay, so we have the mood board ready, and if you want to print this later on, I will show you how to do that. But let's discuss now the floor plan itself. By the way, if you have many things appearing, you have many windows, and sometimes they appear, sometimes they disappear. With this button down here, you can reorganize your layout. Moreover, if you have one of the layouts selected and you push the F2 key, then the layout would be, or the viewport would be magnified. So if you only want to focus on this part, then just push the F2 key, and then it jumps to a larger scale. If you just click on the floor plan, push F2, and it's going to be magnified. By the way, this is F2 is a short key for this. So that's another tip I can teach you about that. Now let's talk about how to get actual documentation and dimensions from this floor plan. And for this, first of all, I'm going to magnify this. I'm just going to go with this tool over here. And I want to dimension this floor plan, but for an architectural kind of layout, I don't need this many things. I don't need the objects. For that, I need to disable what I see on the floor plan. Now, we already know that there are obviously layers that we can enable and disable. However, there's an easier way to do it. If you go to the layer walk tool over here, then you can see exactly what is currently enabled and disabled on your floor plan. So you see that there's quite a few elements on the furniture layer, lighting, decor, curtains. We don't need them. All we need is the walls and the slabs. If you want to select two things, just control and click, and then you have the elements that you need. Okay, so that's what we need. That's what we want to dimension: walls, doors, windows. The next thing, we are going to do a dimensioning, but we don't want to do this manually. We go to dimension, go to building, and all walls. Now what this does is that it tells you that based on the current settings, these are the things that the software is going to measure up. So it's going to measure the wall endpoints, connections, door, window frame, etc. And from this palette, I can build up what I want to measure and how. So currently I have 4 setups: door, window, wall endpoints, internal rooms and wall thicknesses, overall external building dimensions. I think maybe I do not need that, to be honest. So these 3 are fine. So I'm just going to hit OK, highlight the whole building, hit enter, and then decide how far I want the dimension lines to go. Let's say up until to this point. Hit click, and then the dimension lines appear. Now, The funny things about these dimension lines is that they are in connection with my drawing. What does that mean? It means that, for example, this window is like this wide. But if I go back and change the width to something else, let's say to 1 meters, then the dimension lines would update as well. So now it goes to 1 meter as well. So whatever you do, the dimension lines are going to update themselves. So I'm just going to undo this. Okay, this has been an automated dimensioning, but this still doesn't explain how to dimension things individually. By the way, if you are curious about why the dimension looks like that, this is something which is defined by the window and door properties. So if you want to change that because of your local standards, they might be different, go to the window and door properties, go to dimension and consignment, and set it up here. Okay. Let's place a manual measurement, one by ourselves. So let's say this part of the wall, which is by the way over there with the London poster, I want to dimension myself. So I'm just going to go for a simple length dimension, and I'm just going to say, I'm sorry, I need to select the 2D for this. So I'm going to go with a length dimension, click on one part, click the other part, and offset the dimension the way you want, like this. So now again, you have made a manual dimension. You might want to know how to set up the dimension styles. You do that in the properties. So you go to properties, length dimension, and here you can set up the units that you are using, the decimals, and the architectural ticks at the end. If you want to use another symbol, you can do that here, and you can save this kind of styles as a localized, your own style if you want to set that up. That's not something a beginner should know, but in any case, for those of you advanced users, this is where you can do that. So that's for dimensions. Again, just a refresher, they are in connection with your model, and try your best to make them automatically generated, because that way it would be always in connection with what you have there. Let's talk about two-dimensional symbols, because we want to, for example, position a north sign, elevation on the floor plan maybe, or entrance symbol. Let's start with what we call elevation on floor plan. Now what this does is that you have to select an item that you want to measure up. For example, this time it would be the door, like that. I mean, sorry, it's a wall. It's not a door, of course it's not. And so click a point that you want to actually dimension. By the way, if I ever get lost, if I don't know what to do next, this prompt up here is telling you what and how you should do. So let's just start again. If I go to elevation of floor plan, now the software tells me choose an object to query its height points, wall, slab, object, or roof. So I'm just going to click on the slab, for example, and click on the point where I want to query the height, and I have to decide if I want to measure the top or the bottom of the structure. For now I want to measure the bottom of the wall, so I'm just going to hit there, and I know that the value is now minus 0.3 meters, because this is actually the slab's value, but I'm going to change it to 0 meters because that's what I want to place down. If I hit OK, the software offers me a preview of the two-dimensional symbol that is going to be added. This is what we use in Hungary. If you are using something else, go with the replace option and find something else, or create your own groups for that. This is just a preview, so that's not the actual value that is going to be shown. That's just a preview of how it's going to look like. So hit OK, and then I can position my elevation marker like this. So this is how you do it. Again, this is in connection with the drawing, so if anything changes, this updates as well. So let's start with another. What should be next? I think the room and area stamp would be the next two-dimensional group that we are placing. Now, when it comes to rooms, the software is able to calculate elements which are highlighted or bound by walls. By the way, if I hover my mouse here, you see a very strange sketching problem that I did. The ceiling was made a bit hastily, so this point is not good. If I click on this move node, I can fix that. So that's just a quick detour, so as we are not leaving anything unsaid. Okay, let's go with room and area. Well, how does this work? If I go with room by walls, the software is able to sort of recognize how far the rooms go. So if I click, now the software is going to recognize the boundaries of the room, and it tells me it's currently 34 square meters plus change. And now it says living room concrete. This is a default that you can set up. So if you go to the room and area properties, you can set up how these norms and naming conventions should look like. So for example, now this particular living room, if I click on the pencil icon, it tells me that it is a living room because it was, I told the software before, but if I want to rename that, maybe in certain, what should this be? So it's reception room, for example. I can rename that. I can define what kind of covering the room has. I think it has, if I remember well, it has a parquet covering. And if I hit OK, the stamp updates. Again, you can move this somewhere else if you want, but that's just one way to do it. However, if you want to have manual control over what your room shape is, you can do that. For example, let's delete this stamp. Let's imagine that we have one part of the room which is a dining area, which is actually the case over here, and another part which is a living room. So how do we assign the roles? We do that with the room and area room by polygon tool. Again, I'll show it again. Maybe I click too hastily. This room and area room by polygon, and then you have the ability to manually sketch the boundary of the room. So in this way, the software is going to ignore the actual walls. Instead, it listens to you how big the room is. Now, I don't know where to snap to, so I'm just going to hover my mouse up here and allow the software to appear with these green lines. And then if I click back, hit enter, the software tells me what is the height of the slab and wall. This is basically needed for calculation. Let's just use it as it is. Hit OK. And then I have one room with these boundaries. Let me just rename this. So from now on, this is be called, let's go to calculated values. This is going to be called living room with dash or without dash, based on your preferences. And the covering is going to be parquet. And now, let me just move this a little bit, like this. And now the remaining part, I'm going to assign as a dining area. So I'm just going to highlight the points. Again, snap to this point, snap to the opposite side. Perfect. Snap like this. Just use the snapping option, it just makes things much easier. So enter, again, enter, and now if I have another room, which I'm going to rename, and it's going to be called, I said dining, right? Dining. And the covering, well, it could be parquet, but maybe I changed my mind and I want to have another, maybe marble tiled or ceramic tile sort of covering. So that's how you do it. That's how you assign room or location sort of roles by yourself. So that's how you do that. And the next logical thing would be is to have sort of like an entrance sign, because that is what we need here, like a two-dimensional group, an arrow which shows that this is how I'm going to enter the location. So I'm just going to go to the object library, and here I have a group library over here. So if I go with what should we look for? Let's look for arrows. And I think I'm going to use this arrow 03, drag, drop it, like that. And I want to turn it, so I'm just going to click on it, click the rotation marker and flip 80 degrees. Let me just find another one. I think that wasn't the one that I was looking for. Arrow number 2 would be fine, like that. So I'm just going to rotate it like that, and I'm just going to snap it somewhere here. So I'm clicking on the end, snap it to this point, and there we go. So now we have like an entrance marker over here. You can move this if you want, you can fill it up with color if you need, but that's just the idea of how to use two-dimensional groups in your floor plan. Next logical step is the north sign. Now the north sign is a bit similar to an entrance sign, but a bit tricky as well. I'm showing you why. So let's assume that I already know the north direction of this model, and let's assume that it's like this. So I'm just going to click on the north direction marker, and I'm going to turn this compass over here, like that. And from now on, the project north is like this. So I want to enter a compass to signify the north direction, which I can do by clicking on the design center, and I think under the signs and sorry, I entered the library, but I didn't need to. I'm not sure where to find it. I think it's in the North English folder. Let's find one which is actually good for my purposes. Let's say this one. if I drag and drop this element, you see that it's already rotated automatically. So I don't need to rotate it to be in sync with the actual north direction. The software does it on my behalf. So let's click it. There are two problems with this. This symbol. First of all, it's green while it should be black. So I'm just going to hit the group itself and say that I want to force the color of the group, because if I highlight this element, I see that the group's color should be black, but the arrow is still green. Why is that? That is because the individual lines and hatch patterns which were created were originally green, and the group is not enforcing its color, not imposing its color onto this group. But if I select it and I say force color, it's going to be black. So the other problem is that this is too large. I need to scale it down, but without, you know, instead of coming up with numbers how to scale this down, let's use a formula. It's very important that in ARCHLine, whenever you can type in a value, you can use formulas. Multiplication, deduction, whatever you want. So now I'm going to delete the meter signifier and say that it's going to be 2.72 meters divided by 2. Hit enter, and the software scales the group the way I want. So again, if you have any element and you want to change its size, you can add multipliers or divisions or anything like that. So formulas work here perfectly. Okay, having said that regarding the signs and symbols, let's proceed now with a text. I think now it's enough space to put a text over here, so I'm just going to go with drafting, text, and here I need to enter, let's say it's going to be a living, or what should be, living room, and I think with a dash, that will be in order. And another thing I should add may be the scale. Scale 1 to 100. Okay? And the text should be here. Cancel. Now, my problem here is that that this is too small. So if I click on the size signifiers, then I can make it a little bit larger. I'm just wondering why it hasn't added the line break. Let me just investigate this a bit further. If I click on the marker over here, or I'm just clicking here to sort of signify the text itself, I'm not sure why it's not adding that, but I have to investigate that further. So I'm just going to do it like this. So if you want to add text and you want to resize it, that's how you do it. You can remove it somewhere else. Now it's been asked that how do I set up a default text style? Now this is important because you might want to sort of give another style to your software, a dimension or a text style that you can use, maybe another font, maybe another font size. So how do we do that? We go to text, right click and say property. And I'm sorry, that's not that. So let me just think for a second, because yeah, just a second. I'm just going to find where to find the text style. I think let me go back to this schedule later, because I'm pretty sure I can do that. Just need to remember how. Okay, so regarding the text, we are going to come back to that point. Next logical point is that we are going to print a two-dimensional floor plan of this location. How do we do that? Well, we could do it right now, but the problem is that in the 3D I have all the objects, but on the 2D I don't have nothing. So I need to fill this up back with lives, which I do by clicking on the layer walk and again turning off on the visibility of all the elements that I need, including curtains, lighting, etc. And now I see that my stamps should be moved a little bit further like this, so that way it will be less crowded. So now I'm able to print this out only after I have moved this as well, because I don't like crowded drawings. I'm sure that you don't like that either. So now I want to print the whole thing. So how do I do that? Well, the easiest way to do it is to go to File, Print to PDF, and then the software prompts me to this printing window where I can set up the printing properties. Now, the first thing I have to decide is that where I want to print this. Obviously, you could find another printer if you want to actually print to a printer. If you have another PDF norm that you want to use it in, you can do that here. I'm just going to use as PDF printing, and clicking on the File button over here, I can define where I want to save my my floor plan. So this would be here, and I'm just going to name it floor plan. Okay, this hasn't printed it yet. This is just a signifier of the name. So now comes the paper size, which should be A3, and I think it should be a landscape one. Okay, I want to print the entire drawing, and I want to define the scale factor. Now, here I have several choices. If I say scale to fit, then the software is going to distort the drawing into a shape that actually fills out the paper, but this is not in an actual scale. So this is like 38 point something, which is not, you know, an actual norm. So instead of using scale to fit, always try to find a scale with which the drawing would fit. So now it's going to be 1 to 50. So if I'm just going to say apply, close this and change this text actually, because it should be 1 to 50. So let's do it like that. And now do it again. So just print a PDF. I don't want to have anachronisms, you know, or controversies that I have put 100 here and 50 there. So now paper size is good, orientation is perfect, but the drawing is not in center, so I have to click center the plot. And now I have the drawing nicely and neatly aligned with the center in 1 to 50 scale. So if I hit print now the software thinks for a second, and then it's going to save the document. And if you have a PDF viewer that I have over here, then it's going to appear. If you're not satisfied with line weights or anything like that, you can go back to the software and change these things there. But this is how you can make a printout of your floor plan. Let me just close this down and proceed with another task, which is about proceeding with the documentation. Because, you know, having just one single floor plan is not enough. You want to create like a layout of certain assorted drawings and dimensions, and only one part of it would be the floor plan. We also need wall elevations, and that we can create using the documentation tool. Now, wall elevations, I already talked about architectural sections before. These elevations are going to be a bit similar. I have two choices. I either want to have like an image view of the wall that I'm looking at, or I want to have a drawing version. Now, both have advantages and disadvantages. Let me just start with image. What I do, I click on the wall that I want to dimension up, and I'm not sure if you see it from this plant, but I have an arrow which shows me where I'm looking the wall from. So I'm just going to click, and now the software tells me this is what I currently see. If I click on the side of this rectangle, I can offset it all the way to the edge of the building, and then this would be what the width of what I'm seeing. And also I can trim it back, because if I don't want to see that many things, I can trim back. I don't want to see this, what is this? Maybe like a small sitting device. So I'm trimming it back. I don't want to see this. And if I hit enter, the software thinks for a second, and it tells me that now I ended up with a PNG image. Now, regarding the images, you can define what kind of file format you need. I always use PNG because that's what I can easily edit in GIMP, the image manipulation software. And also you can decide on the size. So I'm just going to use it as it is, and then I can place it down. So I could place it down onto the same layout as the drawing. Or if you want to collect it in a different way, then you can just go to View, Add to the Drawing, and name this as Wall Elevations. So now you have a clean drawing, and you can now go back to your floor plan, hit Ctrl X to cut this image, click a picking point, now it's gone. So if I go to my other layout, Ctrl V would place it. So now if I don't want to sort of collect everything onto the same level, then I can do it just this way. So if I go back to the wall elevations, maybe I need to have another one. So I'm just going to go with again, documentation, wall elevation. It's going to be this time a drawing version, and click on this wall over here. And I'm looking at it from here. Do I want to trim it back? No, I think this is fine. Hit enter, and now I ended up with another drawing. So if I highlight it, Ctrl X, it's better to, you know, collect them separately, because that way your design would be much cleaner. So let me show you how to dimension onto these documents, because even though this looks like a picture, it's still got nodes onto which you can dimension things. So let's dimension this, which we can do by, well, first of all, let's reorganize the working area with this button over here, and go with dimension. and I'm going to do a series of horizontal dimensions, which is done like this. So first, pick the point that you want to start the measurements from. You see that when I hover my mouse, the software snaps to that point. So this would be the first point. I'm sorry, that I need to have horizontal ones, not like that. So I'm going to go with horizontal. So dimension this up like this, and then every time you click on anything, the software is adding the dimension line like that. So I'm going to dimension it like this, and eventually I would have the wall thickness like that. So if the wall thickness is too close to the other dimensions, maybe your drawing gets too crowded, then you just click on the rotation markers, and you can, the movement markers, and you can move these things. If you want to measure the height of these drawing elements, maybe you want to measure the sill height and the window height, then you can do an elevation on section action, which is done like this. So first, again, just follow what is written here. Pick the first point to dimension, and pick the second point and offset the numbers like that, like this, and I forgot about the 0, so I'm just going to hit that as well. So that's how you can do it on an image version. If you want to use it on a drawing version, then it's even easier, because then you have all the numbers or the nodes over here, so you can snap to these points easily. One thing I want to point out though is that you might want to get the hatch patterns right. So if you, for example, want to know how come the slab looks like this on an image and looks like that on a section, then it's a very easy answer. So let me just go to the 3D and select the slab itself. Let's go to its properties and go to the slab layers, and here it has single layer concrete setup. So if I click on the concrete marker, I have the selection ability to pick the right material for this slab. But instead of picking another one, I'm going with this cogwheel icon, where if I click edit material, I can set up how my my object appears on an image and how it would look like on a hatch. So that's where you can find the actual hatch pattern and set up how your hatches should look like. That's just a detour, another tip for the advanced users out there. So let's return back to the wall elevations. If I want to name them, I can actually write things onto this. So that would be another way to organize your drawings. Name your drawings as you want. Now, once we have created the wall elevations, I think now it's time to collect things together onto a nice little plot layout. Now, the plot layout, or layouts for short, can be created with documentation, and clicking on plot layout, and we prepare one. Now, what is actually a plot layout? It is actually very similar to a mood board. This would be a paper which is going to collect your drawing elements, but this time it's going to collect the drawings in a scaled down version. Up until to this point, we worked in a 1:1 scale, so we haven't needed to scale down anything except when we were printing it. But this time it's going to be scaled down even when it gets to the paper. Without explaining further, let's just jump in and see. So first, define the paper size. You know, up until to this point, nothing fancy. Works the same as the mood board. So paper size is A3. Landscape. This time I need to have a title box. I'm going to use this one, English 1 horizontal. Hit OK. And now the software is preparing me with a stamp like that one. So if you have project parameters that you want to fill out, maybe you already know the consigner of this, then you can just put in, let's say this time it would be, well, the ARCHLine.XP would be the name. And the designer, well, I don't want to take credit for this because it's being made by another user of ours. So it's going to be Berta. Like that. And now the title box is automatically filled. If you want to fill it later on, you can do that, but these are basic data that we are going to work with. What is the next task? First, we have to push the drawing elements onto this layout in a scaled down version. So I'm just going to go with the Project Navigator. Now, if you haven't used the Project Navigator before, this is a very neat tool to organize your drawing content. If you don't see it, maybe it's hidden, maybe it's a reclusive little thing. So if you hover your mouse over the Project Navigator, it should appear. And if you move your mouse away, it should collapse. But if you want to make it stay where it is, hover your mouse and use this little pin thing to pin it out. So now it's there. Okay, so first we need to insert the ground floor drawing onto this layout. So I'm just going to grab it, move it, and release it. Now the software asks me, what is the scale in which you want to place this drawing element. It's going to be 1 to 50, like this. So now click and it's there. Okay, that was easy enough. How do we insert our wall elevations? Let's go with that. So wall elevations are here. I drag, drop, and it's going to be a 1 to 100. And my problem is that I don't really, well, I think 1 to 50 would be better, to be honest. So I'm just going to undo this, and it's going to be in 1 to 50, like that. Okay, here we go. Problem, it's too large. Things are like getting away from the paper, and I don't need this image version anyway. So what do? I click on the drawing that I have inserted, and I offset this this back. Does this mean that I'm deleting the drawing? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that this bluish rectangle is like a window through which I'm looking at the original content. So if I click on this, for example, I see that this is what I see. So if I have things outside of this rectangle, it's not going to be featured. So that's how you can easily push things onto a layout. What happens if you have any kind of change on your drawing? Maybe I go back to the drawing and I'm removing this symbol. I don't need that. So now there's discrepancy here, because here I don't have only the original content, I don't have the arrow, but on the layout I still do. So what I need to do, I have to select the part which is pasted, go to the local menu and say refresh this, because if I do, the software is going to compare this layout with the original drawing, and if there's anything that it needs to delete, then it does. So it's going to get rid of the extra arrow that I don't need there. What else do we need here? A thing that I haven't showed you is how to actually create a snapshot of your project, and how to make a colored version of the floor plan. Both I'm going to show you now. Let's start with the colored version. So if I go to back to the two-dimensional sort of layout, and if I say I want to have a snapshot, I want to create or delete a floor snapshot like that, and it's going to be, well, you have to be careful about this value. This is the plane or the height in which the drawing is going to be cut, because if it's too low or too high, then your windows might not be visible there. 1.5 meters will be fine, but if you have windows which are starting above that value or finish below that value, then they are going to be missing from this. So let's just hit OK, and then the software is going to award me with textured floor plan, which if I click on it, I can move somewhere else. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to have this part of the drawing on my layout. How do I do that? Well, first I click on documentation, plot layout, and copy part to plot layout, either by a rectangle or a polyline. So I'm just going to go with rectangle. Let's just select this. Let's go back to copy parts to rectangle and select it. Pick a point with which I'm going to move it, like that. And then I activate the layout, go back there, and now I want to paste it in a 1 to 100 scale. So I'm just going to say plot layout and paste to plot layout in 1 to 100 scale, like that. Now here's the thing, I want to make sure that that whoever is going to view this layout would understand that this particular drawing is 1 to 100 and not 1 to 50. So logical step would be is to add a piece of text over here. So I'm just going to go with drafting text and put in scale 1 to 100. I'm sorry, 100, not 200, obviously. But the problem is that now again the text is going to be too large, which takes us back to the original problem that we had, namely that if you are putting down text like this, they are going to be too large. So you need to scale this back down, which we can do by scaling it down like this. So let's just make sure it's smaller. I think it should be even smaller. So I think what would be the actual size? Maybe 20 millimeters would be. I think that's even too large. So that should be 5 millimeters. Yeah, here we go. So that's how you do it. Point to remember here that on the layout everything is scaled down. So if you put down something with its original real world scale, it's going to be too large. Similarly, if you are using drawing elements on an actual 1-to-1 scaled working environment, it's going to be too large. So that these are the only things to remember regarding that. So I already showed you how to refresh the layout. I think now there's no work around it. We have to print this. Before I do, one thing I was forgetting to mention is the snapshots. If you have a 3D view that you want to save somehow, then you can do it by going to documentation, snapshot, and snapshot of the 3D view like that. Now, when you do that, you have two choices. You either save it onto the floor plan or you save it as an offline copy. I'm going to save it as an offline copy. I'm going to tell you in a second why. So I'm just going to find it another resolution, click save. And for now, I'm going to save it among the documentation elements. It's going to be called a, what should the name be? 3D snapshot 02. Okay. Because from now on, this image could be used even on a mood board or a layout. So you don't have to only use content from within the project. You can use it from within the file browser like that. So if you have this and you want to paste it, you can do it like this. So that was something that I haven't mentioned, but I didn't want to miss that one. So let's go back to the layout. And now it's time to print it. We go to print to PDF, which is shortcut over here, so you don't have to go all the way back here. Instead, you can just go to documentation and print to PDF. Couple of things we have to figure out here because it's well, it's easy to print it. There's just a few things you have to keep an eye on. First, make sure PDF printing is highlighted, and make sure you have another name for this. So I'm just going to name this layout 02. I find it very difficult to type while I talk. I wonder why that is. So let's just hit save. Define the paper size. A3 would be fine. And well, why is the drawing so small? This is because the drawing is scaled down. Well, that's fine, wouldn't you say? I mean, this is 1:50, right? Well, yes, but if I already scaled it down to 1:50, I don't need to scale it down any further. So I need to go to a 1:1 scale. Otherwise, it's going to be too small. Next problem, the drawing is not in center, so I'm just going to hit center the plot, and now it's neatly in center. Okay, I think this is good. So if all the line weights are good, and if I have everything set up, I can just hit print, and then the result would be pushed in a nice little plot layout in a second. So let me just drag it onto here. This is appearing in another window. So let's just zoom in. So this is how you create a layout. If you want to create a multi-page layout, make sure you check out my architectural course, because then we just discussed how to create a print queue, print queue of certain print shops. This is, I think, too advanced now to discuss, but I think this is what we wanted to cover from beginning to end. So from the very first modeling parts all the way to dimensions, symbols, text, colored version of the same project elements, 3D snapshots, wall elevations, that is very important, and also lastly we have a plot layout. Everything is nicely put together. Now let's see the questions, because there are many. So let's see what we have here. Okay, a question, can we cut pictures in circle shapes? I need to investigate that. I never actually tried that, but let's just see that for ourselves here. So if I want to edit or clip the images, I think there should be a cut image with a polygon. So let's see what we have. Circle, I think, yeah. I have to investigate that further. I think this is doable. I think I have done that before. But let me just make another try, because I'm sure that you can do it with a... I think, yeah. I know what was wrong, so yeah, should be doable. I'm just not sure how exactly, but no, I'm not going to invest more time in that one, because that should be a way to do it. Maybe you could no, let me just think about it for a few more seconds. While the questions are arriving, let me just write my colleague Ilish over here, because there are some plot layout regarding questions, and I think he has something to say about that. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which is about, let me just scroll back. Can you set a default font for all projects? I'm going to show that in a second. Another question, how can we make a new window table and not the usual one? I'm not sure what that means, so maybe you might want to explain that to me. Maybe, no, I'm not sure about that. If the model is geo-referenced, will the north point not automatically have its angle? Yes, if it is, but this project hasn't equipped like that. So if you have another project, then I'm just going to open up a new version of ARCHLine, and I'm going to there open up a new project which I'm pretty sure is geo-referenced, and then the north symbol would jump automatically there. So let's find another project which does have geo-referencing. I think this one does, or if not, then I can show you how to do that. I think originally I have set this up, but maybe this still has the north direction in pointing to 12 o'clock. But if you already have, if you, for instance, yeah, here we go. So now we have a project in which the north direction is already set up. So if I have another element over here, let's say like this, then the arrow would comply with it. So this is something what I haven't done in my previous project, but if you have set it up and if the project is geo-referenced, then this is how it should look like. Okay, the next question, can the text of the floor plan for the scale not be linked to the chosen scale in the output? I have to circle back to that. Can you refresh all drawing sheets in one? Yes, you can. If you go back to the sheet itself, then you have refresh layout tool over here. So that way you can, let me just highlight the whole plot layout. And if I say I want to refresh all the layout elements, then it's going to refresh everything. So I don't have to do it one by one. You can do it at once. And clarification on the table question that I was asked before. I'd like a table on the doors window to show width, height, type, seal to be on the plot floor plan for every door window, of course. Yeah, I can do that. I can show you that. I did not want to cover schedules today, but I think now it's in order. So ARCHLine.XP comes with a tool which is called a schedule, and what it does is that it creates a table of elements which are sort of collecting the elements, but they are in connection with the model. I think it's better to show it. So let's go with placing schedule. And here I have several choices. I'm going to go with a door and window schedule. Yeah, a door schedule would be fine. I think I have 2 doors or maybe 3 windows, so I think it's better to position them. And here I can define what kind of data I want to show. I want to have the ID I don't need, floor I don't need, name, no, width, height, orientation, area, reference ID. I think this is fine. So if I hit OK, then the software would make a table of content over here. So here I have all the elements that I have created. So this you can also put onto the layout. More importantly, if you want to trace back to the original elements, so you want to know what this schedule actually is, you can just click on it and it shows you. And if there's any change in the schedule or in the model, these things would update. So again, similarly, you can now copy paste this schedule onto the layout. So if there's, I'm not sure if it would fit, but I will try it nevertheless. So I'm just going to go with plot layout, copy part to plot layout with a rectangle, and I'm going to copy this part in a, maybe it would fit here in a 1 to 100 scale. So I'm just going to go with plot layout, paste, 1 to 100, and here we go. So again, this is yeah, it was too small. This is actually a good way to show this. Okay, so this works 2 ways. So the selection rectangle works 2 ways. If I have something missing from my drawing, I can just click on the selection rectangle and just trim it back, and then it would show. See? So that's how you can do it. Okay, let's go back to the questions that we have. Wow, looking at this nice. Okay, that was for the doors and windows. Is it possible to make that automatic, or I should make it by group 1 by 1? If it references, this question references the door and window schedule, then the schedule is put together automatically, but you have to place them onto the layout manually. Question, in the title block, can you send fields to come through from the project details? Yes, actually, I haven't showed you that, but under file and BIM and project parameters, you can set up things which are default values for a project. So if you have the project's name or number or all the details over here, then when you are filling out a layout, project name, let's say reception room, project number should be 001, etc. So you can 0422, etc. You can fill this out originally, and then when you are preparing a new layout, let's create another one like this with a plot stamp, and yeah, then here I can decide to update the project parameters, and that way they are going to be added to the title box. So that's the correlation between the title box and the project parameters. Okay, so that's, just to put it simply, that's the way to do it. Okay, let's look at another question. Please see, we see question time. Let it go. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, so another thing that I haven't discussed is regarding text. So let me just open up a new project and show you how to set up the text style over there, because I haven't done this in a while, but I think I can just yeah, I think I will need to ask for some help regarding that one, because I'm pretty sure I managed to do it before. I just need to refresh my memory. Let me just go to my guide and look for that one. So okay, I can't seem to find it, but next time I'm going to start with this one. So oh yeah, I've got it. Obviously, it was right under my nose. It's drafting text, but this time I have to click on properties and go with text. And here you can edit the text like that. So you can edit the sort of the style, how it should look like. So if you want to set up the sizes, the font, and things like that, and then later on you can name the style, add it to a folder, and it's going to be in the subfolder. Let's in fact create one now. There's no way around it. So the font size should be 100. I said 100. And the font should be, I use this Century Gothic, so I'm just going to use it once more. Century Gothic. And the color, let's just copy that we did before with the mood board. This would be mahogany. And yeah, I think this is fine. And then I'm just going to name it as webinar mood board font folder, custom fonts and subfolder. I don't need that. I want it to be available in all projects. And if I do that, if I hit text again, then I have the font over there. So that's how you create an actual one. That's how you do it. So this is how we do it. Okay, that was the answer for several questions, I think, regarding the texts. Yeah, about this, can the text of the floor plan for the scale not be linked to the chosen scale in the output? Well, depends where you put the text to, because if you put text into the original floor plan in an actual scale, then you have to scale that down as well in the plot layout. If you want to have a font which is the actual perfect size on a layout, then you have to copy the style, resize it, and save it as a font style customized for plots. So what you need to do is that when you are saving a style like that one, so when you are creating a new one like that, then make sure you find a smaller size, and when you're saving it, name it as version for layouts or things like that, and then you can use the text. But here's a very important thing to sort of stress here. When you are creating a plot layout, the plot layout is not there to get additional text or lines on top of it. That's just for collecting the elements. If you want to have additional annotations, you can do that just fine, but the role of the layout is not to have actual elements, additional drawing elements onto them. It's about collecting things. So if you want to have additional text, you can do that, but it's better to make them in the 1:1 scale floor plan view. Okay, another question. I tried to do a floor snapshot. How can I get it in a high resolution like yours? For some reason, my floor snapshot is much lower resolution. I think that should be a setting, but let me just circle back, because if I do documentation, snapshot, I think this is a default. I'm not entirely sure where to set this up, but I could be looking into that later on. So yes, I understand what you mean. So yeah, that is noted. What could be the other way? I'm just wondering if there's another way to make a floor snapshot, but I don't think there is. Okay, I will look into that one. So these were all the questions. Let me just run through them again real quick to see if I have if I have managed to cover them all. The only thing I'm missing is the pictures in a circle shape. Let's make another try with that one. So if I have a raster image, let's say I have one like this, and if I want to crop it like that, so I'm going to clip the image and cut the image with a polygon outside, and I think, yeah, so you can do that, of course. Of course you could, but with a larger larger circle maybe. So if I go to the context menu, you go with clip the image. It matters which one you choose, because if you say cut the image with a polygon inside, then you are going to drill holes within the image. But if you go with outside and you click circle, then you have to add the radius, which let's make it 2000 millimeters. Don't forget that now we are working in millimeters and 1:1 scale, so even this one is too small, but you get the idea. So that's how you clip the image. The rest of the image is staying there, but it's going to be temporarily hidden. So that's how you do that. On the layout, it works the same way. And yeah, and that was all the questions. I think I managed to cover them all. If there's anything missing, please let me know. Next time, which is tomorrow, we are going to look at lighting. And that is all about lamps and what makes a lamp. Lamp is actually made of an object. That is a no-brainer. But it also has a light source, which is the light emitting element, which is going to actually cast light onto your other objects and models. And that will result in better rendering. So if you want to know what makes a good rendering, there are two secrets for that. One is the light, so lights have to be spot on. And the other thing is material settings, and the former is the one that we are going to look at tomorrow, and that is how to edit lights, how to create your own light sources, how to turn things that you have downloaded into actually light emitting and light casting elements, and how to make a good rendering out of lights. So that is what we are covering tomorrow. Thank you very much for your attention today. If you have any further questions, you can let me know. And again, as a reminder, for those of you who are newcomers, if you want to check out our upcoming shows, you can do it on the website. You can download the course guides, and you can upload or you can check back on the older sessions that we had. Again, if you want to get more architecture related topics, then you have them under ARCHLine.XP.com/webinars. For now, I would like to thank you for your attention. See you tomorrow. Oh, by the way, if you like this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel so you'd never miss another show like this again. Thank you.